Hi Flosstube, it's Kim, aka Spartan Stitcher on Instagram, and I am back again with another weekly cross-stitching update. This is Flosstube number 70. Today is the 25th of May, 2020, which is Memorial Day here in the United States. So just want to remind everyone to spend a few moments in gratitude for those who have lost their lives in service to the country. Just a quick reminder, Memorial Day is not for veterans or those that are currently serving in uniform. They're for the ones who never got to take the uniform off because they lost their lives. So Armed Forces Day, May 16th, is for those currently serving, so active duty or active guard and reserve folks. Veterans Day, folks who took the uniform off. And Memorial Day is for those who died in uniform. So it's for remembering these guys. Missing in action, killed in action folks. So thank you to them. All right. I worked on 2 different pieces this week. And I got a lot of progress. So first was Beauty and the Beast 2017, going for my second page on it this month. Working on this page right now, or this page right here with her top hand and the rose. The page break was in between, but of course, because I feather into pages anyways, if I was using those colors, I completed the color for that section. And I did get the page finish. I finished the park for Full Coverage Fanatics National Park Challenge. So that was Mesa Verde. And I'm at 51% on the piece. I have used up 8 colors. So 8 of those colors were only used in the rose, in the actual flower petals, or the leaves and stem. So I got to see those go down to 0 on Pattern Keeper, which is pretty cool. And once I finished the national park, I still had a ways to go to get to the page finish, but I didn't want to start another park on it because then it'd be a never-ending cycle. Do I go for the page finish or the park finish? So 2,000 of these 10 stitches were not used for a park. I do have the pictures in case I ever, need to use them for a park, but as of right now, 2,000 of these are not attributed to a park. Of course, I do use all of my stitching for the group events in the School of Magical Stitches. We think we have like 4 going on right now. Tree of Life, Future World Epcot, Star Wars Land, and there's something else. There's 4 of them open right now, so it's kind of which one do you put your stitches towards? So, there we go. So that's 2 pages finished this month on Beauty and the Beast. 2 pages was my goal for the year. So, and I finished the park. So this may not be picked up again this year. Or it might. You never know. I want to try to reach more of my goals on my other pieces before I exceed goals on the pieces that I've met those goals. So there's a whole thing that's 51%, or 51.8 if you want to be exact. Let me get you a close-up of that page. This one did take me longer, so I started the page on Monday and I didn't finish the page until Friday. There's a lot of colors in her hand and the rose. And the other thing, I thought maybe it was color burnout because I was having a hard time getting started on the page. But I think it's more that I have this on the 11 by 17 Q-snap. And I sit against the right side of my couch because my right arm is on top. I'm left-handed. My left hand goes underneath. And this was a left-hand page. So I had to kind of shift my way back this way for the 11 by 17. So it just kind of took a little bit to get into. I could rest the 11 by 17 on the arm of the couch, but then that interferes with seeing the tablet on the side table or seeing my phone that's playing, Flosstube or whatever. So I kind of actually stitched with my Q-snap on an angle like this, down on my legs and propped up against me, and stitching this way. Literally, the fabric was on this much of an angle, which kind of also puts more strain on the shoulder because I'm not resting it on the arm of the couch. So you just find what works best. And that way I could see my tablet and see the my phone for, you know, if I was watching Flosstube or Hulu or something on my phone. And then I thought next I would work on Star Wars. That's what I told you I was going to work on. That's what I wanted to work on because I hadn't worked on it at all this year. And I knew that almost 50% of the page was black and it would go quick. But it is a paper chart. And I started it December 30th of last year. So I had only worked on it less than a full day. I only had 3.5 lines out of the page in black done. You can see what's highlighted. The orange I did Friday night. So the blue is all that I had. But this is my working copy page because I didn't want to highlight on the original. And when I started it last December, I don't know if anybody else's printer is like this, but when they don't use the printer for a while, it doesn't print well and you have to do a head cleaning on the printer. Well, apparently I didn't do that. I was in a hurry and I knew that I'd only get a little bit done. So it printed a poor copy of the page. And so I went to go print clean page plus the surrounding pages so I could feather into them. And my black is running low. And the printer says if your ink is running low on any of the colors, it's not going to do a head cleaning. You have to replace the cartridge before it'll do a head cleaning. And guess what? I don't have any extra black ink cartridges. And it was Saturday morning. I wasn't about to go into town just for ink cartridges. So you can see the blurry spots. That's what I mean by a poor working copy. I can tell most of that's black. Of course, I could look at the original copy and just highlight on this one. It seemed like a hassle and I wasn't going to do that. So maybe tomorrow I can drive my girls into town and get some black ink. I might be able to find it at the BX here on base, but I like going to Office Max because then I can give them my used cartridges and recycle them and get some store credit back. So we'll try to do that tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on when I finish the next page that I'm working on. So instead of Star Wars, I put Sunday Delight back on the Q-Snap and went for another working on this page right here. So I have these 2 pages done and I have all the partial pages done. So I decided to do this page for the top of the banana, the tile, and dragon butt. And so I've worked on this Saturday and Sunday and a little bit this morning so far. It stitches up so fast. Plus, apparently, I have no life. Especially yesterday. I don't think I did anything besides feed everybody, you know, and keep them out of trouble. That's all I did. The rest of the whole day I was stitching. And yeah, the things you do when you're in lockdown and your husband's gone and you have no life. So over 2 days plus a few hours this morning, I have 4,810 stitches. I finished Petrified Forest for the National Parks Challenge, and I started Redwood because I only needed just shy of 1,000 stitches into this page to finish Petrified Forest. And so I knew that, you know, a regular Haid page is about 7,500 stitches. So we're talking 6,500 stitches, plus I feather into the surrounding page, or the page above it in this case. And I just decided to go for it. 6,500. I'll do the extra 1,500 for the 8,010 stitches. So I started Redwood. So now I have 3,800 into Redwood National Park. And there you go. So the gridded area is the page. This is the partial page I already had done. So dragon butt, tile, top of the bananas coming in. A little bit of the table is coming in. Last time I showed this, I forgot to say that the most used color on this chart is Krynic. The 032 Sparkly Krynic. And when I started it, I decided, and you know, this table, a lot of that is that called for Krynic plus some of the ice cream and some of the bowl. Well, I'd understand ice cream kind of, you know, being sparkly, but I didn't want anything else being sparkly. There's no reason for a table to be sparkly. So I subbed in DMC Blanc. And so that's what I've used. I am not using any Kreinik whatsoever on this chart. I didn't feel like messing with it. White is sufficient for me. You can't even, I mean, it's white. It looks good. So that is 4,810 stitches on that page so far. I figure 2 more days, if that, day and a half, depending on how much I go bananas. How much I go bananas on this piece. Or if I actually, do some other stuff around the house. Some cleaning, some laundry. We had a really easy dinner yesterday, but everybody liked it. English muffin pizzas, if you ever tried it. You cut open the English muffin, throw them in the toaster to pre-toast them. You put on some pizza sauce, and then, your mozzarella cheese, and we just do little tiny pepperonis. Throw them on a cookie sheet, put them on the broiler. That's a 15-minute dinner that everybody loves. And when my husband's flying, there's an oven on the B-52. Now, given the airplane is 60 years old, it varies from airplane to airplane how well the oven works. But really, English muffin pizzas, the only thing you have to do is heat them up, right? It's not like you're actually cooking the meat from raw to cooked. So English muffin pizzas are a go-to for when you're flying on the B-52 as well. So that's Sunday Delight. I will work on this to get the page finished the rest of this week. Counting today, we have 7 days left of May. So perhaps I'll go get ink and see how much of that page I can get to on Star Wars. Or maybe I'll say F it and be done with my page finish Maynia and put some work into Macintosh Mill, because that is my 20 and 20 piece for full coverage phonetics, and I want to finish that this year. I don't know. Or maybe I'll work on some non-full coverage for the end of the month. I'm not sure. Well, we'll see what we get to. For the month so far with Beauty and the Beast page, that brings me to 7 full pages, 3 partial pages, and counting these that this page that I haven't completed yet, 37,310 stitches. That's all 10 stitches. And over 10,000 of those stitches was on the 2 pages for Beauty and the Beast alone. So that's what I worked on this week. And speaking of when I took Beauty and the Beast off the 11x17 Q snap, last time I showed it to you, I had clips to keep all the fabric rolled up. Well, I didn't have that, and the fabric unrolled, and I looked at it, and I'm like, good God, why is there so much fabric on this piece? I don't know why, if I was in so much of a rush when I started that piece back in 2017, but I had so much extra fabric on the bottom, like it was the correct width, and I had so much extra fabric on the bottom, and I just never cut it off. I just kept it rolled up. So I measured it, because it's easy count, it was easy to see where the end of the chart would be, and I added 3 inches and cut it. I cut off 12 extra inches of easy count. This is a nice size piece for those full coverage Etsy shops. If you want to know which Etsy shops carry full coverage designs and you're a member of Full Coverage Fanatics, we do have a list in the group files. There are some really cool, like, national park full coverage pieces. Carolyn Manning has a really good couple different series, quilt block type series that would fit on this, that I see everybody starting, and I'm like, Or, I mean, there's other, like the piece of Hogwarts that I did from Country Magic Stitch. They have a bunch of vintage travel poster type things that would, depending on which one you could fit on that. So it was like Christmas. I have a 12 by 18 piece of easy 25 easy count. So that was interesting. I did get some haul because, my birthday was the end of March, and I waited. I had a 1-2-3 stitch gift card from one of my stitchy friends And both my mom, my mother-in-law, gave me some money to spend, and I had some money to spend for my husband because he doesn't know what to get me, so he just says buy stitchy stuff. And I've been waiting for 123 Stitch to get their 25 easy count back in stock, but they haven't yet. But I was looking around and they had 28 count easy count in yards and other sizes in stock. And so I doodle on a piece of paper and I put the dimensions of a full yard, 36 by 55, and I look at the stitch counts of all my full coverage pieces that I have and see how many pieces I could fit into a 1 yard piece of 28 count, which is different because I had those doodles for 25 count. I knew how they would fit. Well, it changes when you make it 28 count. You can fit more on there. So I figured I could fit 6 different, I say 6, but one of them is the supersize confabulation of dragons that I plan on cutting into 3 pieces. So that counts 2 of those sections. So 2 of confabulation dragons, and then 4 other charts. I don't remember the 4th one. Anyways, there were 6 of them that I could fit on 2 yards of 28 count. And I had enough birthday money to spend. So 2 yards of 28 count easy count. I am going to start. I'm not going to cut all this up immediately because I normally use 25 count. I do have some 28 count over 1 pieces, but I don't have 28 count that I've done 10 stitch on. So I'm going to cut 1 piece off. I'm going to start 1 of those out of the 6 and make sure I like it before I cut the rest of it up and, divvy it up into project bags with a label as for what piece it's for. And I'm going to start the darkest corner of 1 of those pieces to see what the coverage is like, because, you can tell on Beauty and the Beast, you guys can see the blue. And I keep telling you, it doesn't look that bad in person, but on the camera, you can see all the fabric show through. So for these 2 yards, I'm going to try 28 count. We'll see how it goes. If I don't like it, if it's too small, then I can go to Stash Unload or find somebody who might be interested in this. So we will try it. I will be starting a new full coverage this year at some point to try out that 28 count. And of course, they can't travel alone. This is a new Mill Hill kit called Pumpkin Trio. Just came out a few weeks ago. And when you go on 123 Stitch and you pull up a chart and then there's other charts suggested below it. This one's not new, but it goes along with it. Gourds. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then one piece that has been on my wish list because of a finish that I saw of this, Prairie Schooler Fall Fields. Someone made all of these into pillow ornaments and then put them with some pine cones in a longer oblong dough bowl. So pine cones and some fake fall leaves with these as pillow ornaments. I thought that was really cute. I couldn't tell. They may have done some color substitution too, or floss substitution to fancy floss instead of the called for DMC. So that'll go in my stash. And then a piece that I ordered from Julie at Reflections. I did break the law, the Stitchy law, and I only had 1 thing come in the mail all by its lonesome self. But when you order something from her, her shipping is really decent. It's $1.50. And I think that's worth the effort for her to not only the postage, the envelope, but actually taking it to the post office. So if I can get the glare off, this is called Garden Party by Country Cottage Needleworks, and I thought those would look cute as individual pillow ornaments as well. So you have a ladybug, dragonfly, butterfly, and bumblebee. So that was a recent release. The chart is old, so it was like a re-release. It says copyright 2008. And it calls for Classic Colorworks, but also has the DMC. So that's my haul. A little bit of a life update before we go to Air Force story. I'll have to be quick. We're running out of time. If you watched any of the news in the past week, around my hometown in Michigan, had some flooding this earlier last week. They had between, depending on which area you were in, between 4 and 7 inches of rain within like 2 days on ground that was already saturated. And so rivers flooded and 2 dams failed. This was around the small town of Sanford, which is just north of or upriver of Midland. And Midland is upriver of my hometown of Saginaw. So we had all this water coming down towards Saginaw. Over 10,000 people had to leave their homes and had significant flood damage. The Tittabawassee River was 15 feet deep and crested at 35 feet before the water started going down. So it was, with those 2 dam failures and all the reservoirs behind them, it was 30 times the amount of water going down the river as normal. And my parents live less than a quarter of a mile from the Tittabawassee River in Saginaw. When the Edenville Dam failed, Wixom Lake, which was one of the lakes caused by, right behind the dam, that the lake emptied within 1 minute. We're talking, I think it was something like 28.1 or 21.8 billion gallons of water going down. So my parents, they're fine. Their home wasn't damaged. They were stuck on one side of the river. I think they still might be stuck on one side of the river because the bridges haven't been re-inspected. And they couldn't exit their neighborhood from one side. But luckily they're fine. But as I said, there are many, many people that are not. So lots of people suffering in mid-Michigan. Okay, Air Force story time. If you're not interested, we'll see you next week. Back in November 2013, so my oldest daughter was 1 year old. My husband went TDY, so he went on a trip. We were stationed down in Shreveport, Louisiana, and he came up on a training trip up here to North Dakota, the 2 bases where the B-52 is stationed. And they participated in a week-long nuclear operational readiness inspection. And on the way back, so they only had to fly from North Dakota to Shreveport. It's like straight south. But they were doing another training mission, a 14-hour flight from North Dakota over Alaska and then back down to Barksdale in Shreveport. So it was a 2-ship, so 2 B-52s flying together. They had more than the minimum number of crew on board because they had some instructors, and because, again, it's 14 hours, they could take turns on and out. So the jet my husband was on had 7 people, as opposed to the minimum 5. And as they flew up to Alaska, they were contacted by air traffic control in Anchorage because there was a lost Cessna flying around the northern parts of Alaska. They knew the Cessna was getting lost and needed help, but they couldn't get him again on the radio, and so they were asking the 2 B-52s for assistance. Now, in Alaska, the weather there is wild. It can go from great visibility to no visibility really, really quick, and this is what had happened. And these small aircraft pilots, the Cessnas, They usually are only VOR rated, which is VHS or VHF omnidirectional radio range, instead of instrument flight rated or IFR. So they use radio signals to help navigate things, and they use visuals of the land around them. So they're always lower altitude pilots. Well, so they air traffic control gave my husband's jet and the other jet in the two ship several different radio frequencies to try to find this Cessna, and they did. They did find him. They got him on the radio. So the Cessna is below the clouds, flying in the mountain valleys. Meanwhile, the Buff is above the clouds, several thousand feet higher, and they're trying to locate where he is. They couldn't see him on radar because of ground clutter on the radar, and obviously there was no visibility. There's clouds in between. And so the aircrew in the Buff, I'd say Buff, that's a nickname, in the B-52 have iPads, and while they weren't able to say exactly this is where you are, they can pull up charts and say, okay, can you see this river? And yes, he could see the river, but he didn't know where on the river he was. So there was an instructor pilot on my husband's jet that was used to talking to brand new pilots and talking them through directions. So they were able to guide him along the river, figure out where he was, and direct him to the nearest airfield. And then the other jet, using the radio, was able to get the airfield lights of that nearest airport, all the lights that you see around that help the pilots line up to the runway. They can turn up the brightness on those lights. And so the other Buff was able to do that, to turn up the brightness so the Cessna could see where he was going and safely land. Now, they don't know, as of the newspaper article that I have and the declaration that I read, they don't know his name. The airplane was registered to the Catholic Bishop of Northern Alaska. He was not the one that was flying. The Archbishop was actually in the continental United States for a conference, but they're thinking it was a retired priest that sometimes flies the plane to do some community outreach for the little towns and villages in Alaska. So let me look at my notes here. Okay, so for this one-time event, every person on the aircrew did get a Air Force Commendation Medal. And I'm going to read this to you just so you can get an idea of how these things are worded. So this is to certify that the Air Force Commendation Medal has been awarded to Captain Hollenbach for outstanding achievement. The date in November 2013. Captain Hollenbach distinguished himself by outstanding achievement while flying a higher headquarters directed mission over Alaska on this date. Captain Hollenbach and the crew of Hale 14, that was the call sign of the mission, were contacted by Anchorage Air Route Traffic Control Center requesting assistance locating a missing aircraft. The aircraft was last seen on radar in the vicinity of the Tanana non-directional radio beacon, squawking the emergency code when radio contact was lost. The crew of Hale 14 deviated more than 200 miles from their planned route of flight and were able to successfully establish radio contact with the pilot in command of the missing aircraft. The pilot reported he had lost situational awareness and was unsure of his exact location. The crew of Hale 14 determined the location of the aircraft in a mountain pass through continuous communication with the pilot and guided him to the Ralph M. Calhoun Memorial Airfield. Simultaneously, Hale 14's wingman activated the airfield's runway lights to full intensity using a common traffic advisory frequency. Through a superb example of crew resource management and prior training, the crew of Hale 14 guided the lost airman to a safe landing, thereby saving his life. The distinctive accomplishments of Captain Hollenbach reflect credit upon himself and the United States Air Force, given under my hand, the date, signed by the operations group commander at the base. And so that is the citation that goes along with the medal. This was not my husband's first Air Force Commendation Medal. We usually get them for a time period that you've been at a base before you move away from that base. But you can also get them for specific events. And so that was the case for this one. So Jesse's going to love this one because of the colors of the Air Force Commendation Medal. It's blue and gold. But, so this one would be worn on your mess dress. This goes on your service dress, your normal blues uniform that you see Air Force people wearing. And then I forgot what the little tiny one is used for. So, but again, this was not his first, so he didn't actually need to take it out of the case and put it on his uniform. Once you get more than one of a certain medal, you start putting little oak leaf things right in the middle of it, and each oak leaf signifies another of that medal. So, all right, I'm running out of time. I hope everybody has a good week. Get some stitching done, and we'll see you in June. All right, guys. Bye.